Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another live episode of Tech Thursday. My name's David, and it's been a while. It's been about 2 months since I was here with you all. So hopefully tonight's session will be really nice and smooth. Last month was very kindly curated by my amazing colleague, Thomas, and what a fantastic job he did as well. However, I'm back, and I've just been to the UK Global Bird Fair, so we're all energized for wildlife and nature photography as well. But today we're going to look at some software. This is a session that should have actually run, I think, in March, but sadly we had to reschedule. So we're going to look at OM Capture Tethering Software today and hopefully explore it a little bit more, find out what it can do. And of course, because it's Tech Thursday, you can chuck your questions in the chat. There's so many of you said hello already from all over the world. Thank you so much for joining. Some of you I did see at the Global Bird Fair here in the UK in Rutland, and it was great to see you. So thanks for dropping by again. Drop your messages in the chat. Be nice to each other. Be nice to me. Keep it techie, and we'll see what we get out of today. Today we will have a demonstration with OM Capture and the 90mm macro and an OM1, and we'll go through what the software can do. If there are any limitations at all, we'll talk about those. And obviously sort of interject those with your own technical questions about whatever you like, whatever camera you like, whatever lens you like, providing it's within the remit that I know about. So Olympus or OM System products, and we'll go from there. Hi to everybody. I can't say hi to all these people individually, so I'm just going to say hi to everybody. And I'm going to just see if we can take a question real quickly. So let's see. Oh, we haven't got any questions yet. We just got all loads of hellos. And thanks for the presentations as well. So you're all welcome for that. We do love giving these to you. So there's loads of us about there, depending on what your first language is. We've got lots of global live streams that you can chip into. And of course, in English as well. Right. So let's talk about OM Capture. Okay. So I've got an OM1 set up. I'm going to have to do a little wheelie roll over here to switch my camera on. What I've got set up is an OM1 with a 90mm macro, and I do have a flash on top with a diffuser, just so that it all looks nice for this demonstration and it's nice and clean. But you can set it up however you like. Now, I've got an OM1 set up to use OM Capture, but you could use any one of the EM1 series of cameras except the first generation, the EM5 Mark II or the EM1X. Yeah, you could use those as well. You can't use the EM5 Mark I, Mark III or OM5. Oddly, that series had a glitch maybe for EM5 Mark II where tethering was designed to work with it, but not with the rest of them. So we're looking at one series cameras from both Olympus and OM System. And once you've got your camera and your lens set up, you're going to need a high quality USB-C cable, or the one that the camera came with, plus something like a Tether Tools extension, if you want to get a bit further and connect that to your laptop or your MacBook or something like that. And then, of course, you're going to want to download the OM Capture software, which is free. You can download that from our OM System website if you go to the Learn Center where the downloads are, or the myomsystem.com website where you can get all the downloads from as well. And once all that's up and running, you connect them together, switch your camera on, and the back of the camera is going to give you some options. Unless you've locked it down to a specific USB setting, it should give you a few options, one of which is a computer connection icon plus the words raw control. And you're going to select that one. And that's going to bring you in to, hopefully, if I've got to press that option on my camera. So here we go, raw control. And then hopefully if I bring some magic in over here, there we go. You should all see a load of screens with me stuck up there in the top corner. And this is basically everything that OM Capture will show you once you are connected. Now, this is everything that OM Capture shows you, and you can have it all, or you can narrow it down. You don't have to have all these windows. But what you've got here is a live view window. You've got a histogram, a live histogram window, a record view window, which is where you'll see your image pop up once you've taken it. And then you've got your main control panel, which is just over here. And we're going to go through these kind of individually and see what we can get out of them as well. and how you can best use them. Because, of course, we all take photographs in different ways. We all use bits of equipment and bits of software in different ways. OM Capture Tethering Software is very much more leaning towards being a studio environment usage. However, you can use it out and about. I've successfully used it on good weather days down in the forest. I've taken my laptop with me. And I've just taken my camera on a small kind of Pixie Pod tripod and a very short USB-C cable, the one that the camera comes with. So I've successfully used it outside as well. But of course, it does lend itself more towards a studio environment. Now, everybody thinks that tethering software, or a lot of people think that tethering software is really for portraiture and client viewings and things like that. But it helps us out in a lot of different ways. So you don't just need to use it for things like that. I use it exclusively for macro photography, because as you can see, I'm not touching the camera. So over there, my camera's staying perfectly still. It's about 4 feet away from me. The subject's perfectly still. Now, of course, if I bounce around up here, then I've got quite bouncy floorboards, and that's going to make a difference to what you see over here. But ultimately, for the best part, nothing's moving. So this is why I will use OM Capture Tethering Software to give my macro photography a nice edge. Plus, I have access to 99.9% of the camera's features through this. So unlike OM Image Share app for your mobile device, for your phone or your tablet, which albeit is a fantastic bit of kit in itself, there are limitations to that in how it can operate over a Wi-Fi connection. You can't access the camera's menus from your phone and things like that. And we can do everything from here that the camera can do, and dip into some menus and some more. Okay, so it's a really, really excellent piece of software to look into. Now, I am running across 3 screens, so bear with me. I'm trying to click buttons and make it all look good. What I do want to say, obviously, is ask your questions in the chat. So that's really good to keep those coming in, and I'll do my best to answer them all. Now, I know some of you do get quite frustrated and upset if we don't answer all of the questions, and we can't physically do that. And we kind of have to almost jump 2 or 3 questions through each one to get through. But I would do my best if you come back to the video once the live has ended and it sits in our YouTube channel with open comments. Come back, and if I didn't answer your question, come back and put it into the open comments, and I'll do my very best over the next few days to jump back in and answer those in the comments. Okay, let's have a quick look at what everyone is saying here. So remember as well, when I do Tech Thursdays, I'm on my own. I don't have anybody reading the comments for me, so I have to kind of talk and glance at the same time and see what everyone's saying. Richard's asking me to review ProCapture SH2. Richard, well, I mean, I can review that quite quickly. ProCapture SH2 is the ProCapture feature, of course, as we know, the time machine capturing images before you press the shutter fully feature. And when it's operating in SH2, it's going to operate to a maximum of 50 frames per second if you are using a 50 frames per second compatible lens with your OM1. And if not, it's going to default to 25 frames per second for ProCapture. And then, of course, the parameters that you choose within the ProCapture menu. So how many frames that can gather whilst you're halfway pressing the shutter before you fully press it. And that's up to a maximum of 70 frames. Now, what you will notice when you use ProCapture in SH2 or SH2 in general, when it's at the 50 frames per second, is that your shutter speed will be limited to a minimum of 1/640th of a second. So it won't go any slower. It can go faster, but it won't go any slower. And also your ISO will be limited to 12,800. So there's a few nuances involved with that. Great first question. Great first question. Barry, sorry, no, the EM10 Mark III, none of the EM10 models are able to tether in this way. Okay. Stephen's asking, can I use a standard car phone charger for my shiny new OM1? The answer is twofold. Yes and no. Yes, you can, but also no if you want it to charge at its maximum capacity and efficiency. So if you're using the charger that comes with it, the in-the-wall charger, the USB-C cable that comes with your OM1, you're going to get a full charge in about 2 hours. If you use a standard phone charger, depending on what standard is for you, that could take many, many more hours as well. So, and you know, excess heat and more electricity. Well, not more electricity, but you know, it's on for longer. So you can, but I would recommend using what it came with, or get yourself a power delivery compliant power bank, which is fantastic. And you can still throw 2 hours charge out of a power delivery compliant power bank. I have one like this. This little bad boy will charge my OM1 4 times and from 0 in 2 hours as well. So it's got the speed. Okay, let's hold some questions. I'm going to go through and just going to tick a few as well. There we go. Oh, and I'm just going to answer Roy's question real quickly, because I did speak about taking my laptop outside and using OM Capture to tether. No, you don't need any internet connection at all using this software. So you don't have to be connected to the internet at all to do this. All good. Hi, Margot. Sorry, just saw Margot just underneath there. I had to say hello to Margot. Hope you're well over there in Atlanta. Good stuff. Right. So now I've got all these things set out here. I've just got a little succulent plant in here. We had a little macro set up at the Global Bird Fair and brought it back, and we're just going to use it for some demonstrations today to show you what we've got going on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the top of the main window that we have here, which is this one here. You'll see my cursor is nice and yellow so everyone can spot it. And if you can full screen wherever you are, give us a full screen and you can see what's going on. Now at the top here, you've got a few options. You've got a question mark option, which can take you to a help file, the usual reduce to taskbar and close options. But then you have menu and you have a gear icon. Now, if you click menu, you'll get several other drop down options, which are the main options that we'll look at briefly now. Okay, so the first one here is action. Now, you can transfer images that are already on your camera onto your computer if you want. That's just as a standard storage feature. What you can also do is, if you hover over shooting, it's going to tell you the quick hotkey buttons for using your shutter button halfway as a function and actually shooting. So in this instance, it's space or enter. So space to halfway press as though you're focusing, and then enter to shoot to expose the shot. And you can also from here launch the OM Workspace editing and firmware updater software if you want. Now, the view option that you've got here, I've got all three of them ticked out here so you can see everything. Now, the view option doesn't count this main control panel, but it counts for your live view, which is ticked. That's the main view that you can see here, which has this kind of dramatic blue casting on it, and that's the YouTube background. Then you've got your record view, your rec view, or your preview. This is what pops up when you've taken an image. That's down here in the bottom left corner of my screen. And then you have your live histogram. Now, ordinarily, I would not have the rec view and the histogram open myself, but I would have the folder open, which is where I've designated for my images to go on my PC. But don't worry, we'll get to that because it's not a singular transmission route anyway. We can go in many different ways. So you can have those as many or as little open as you like. You can also check the connected camera. Obviously, it's saying it's ticked there. It's the OM1. We've got a live view, so we know what's going on anyway. The windows, if I now click arrange windows, it's going to bring them all in together and it's going to lay them all slightly over each other so that I can drag them about and place them where I want to. I'm not going to do that because I'm actually looking at my layout on this screen when actually it's all laid out over on another screen over here, and the mirroring is just real difficult to rearrange. So I'm not going to click that. But ultimately, it brings them all together in case you've lost some windows. So if you do what I do and you're spread out across 3 or 4 monitors all over the place and you've lost the histogram window, you can click arrange windows just there, and that will bring them all back together for you. You've got your help key there that's going to take you either to the manual, which you get to by pressing F1 anyway. It'll take you to our website. It'll see if there's a software update, give you any camera versions, and then all the boring stuff, the boring legals, abouts, and versions and things like that. Sometimes you do need those if you're troubleshooting those, so remember where they are. Then we've got options. Now, if I click options here, it's the same as clicking that little gear icon at the top. So I'm going to click that. And then up pops some options, which, to be honest with you, are not actually really relevant to shooting. These are more background options in terms of things like your display settings. So if you want to change your highlight and shadow thresholds, you can do that. Your languages. The transfer settings, if you're using USB, which we are today, we're using USB cable. Haven't yet mentioned that OM Capture can be used via Wi-Fi, however, not in this kind of iteration, not in how you see it now. It's more of a simple take the shot and it's Wi-Fi'd straight to your machine kind of way. So you have the settings for USB, whereby you can create subfolders. You can automatically add sequential numbers to your file names. There are different ways to do that as well. You can overwrite files with the same names automatically. You've got your download settings, which allow you to leave out raw images if you want to, if you're only wanting the JPEGs. You can display all your images instantly, in Workspace, so that they're not going anywhere other than to Workspace in the folder and then opened by Workspace. And you can also choose if you want to add the IPTC information. Now, this is something quite interesting that I've come across that I found that a lot of people don't know about. And IPTC information is like more in-depth tagging, like EXIF, but for kind of environmental stuff, locations, people, places, things like that. It's quite nice to be able to change things like that as well. And then your file save priorities. You transfer settings to Wi-Fi, pretty much the same, but there are some other options, obviously, because I have a Wi-Fi connection, which we're not going into today because it does vary significantly from person to person on to how easy it is done, is that this connects directly through your home router. So you've got color management options as well if you want to change your profiles for monitors, and then you've got your startup options, and it's just whether or not it checks for updates on every startup. Okay, so strangely, those options not so in depth, but that's where they are, and we'll come across some more options as we go through. Now, let's just have a quick look back into the questions, and I'll see if I can have a little fly through and find something without trying to miss people out. Let's see. We went through and said, no, the EM10s can't do tethering. Barry's asking, how do you get the rec view? It's not showing on mine. So, yeah, so simply, Barry, you need to have in the menu, let me come over here again. Up here in the menu option, you need to go to view and then click rec view here. And you should be able to have instant access to it. That's if I switch that off, it goes away. And then there it is again, tick it, and it comes back. That should be relatively easy, but let me know later on if it's not going your way. Richards, you need to update your cameras and lenses. What's the best way to do this? Okay, so if you've got an EM1 Mark III, an OM1 or an that's beyond version 1.1, or an OM5 at any stage of the firmware, then the easiest way is to download the OM Image Share app on your phone or your tablet, connect them together, and then go to the settings, camera management, and update firmware, and that will pretty much break it down for you from there. That is the easiest and simplest way to do it. You can, of course, do it through OM Workspace, whereby there are a few more steps, and it varies from system to system how convenient and easy that can be. So I do recommend using the app if you have a model that supports it. Okie dokie. So Deborah's asked, can I use with the OMD M2? You can use it with an EM1 Mark II. Seems like I mentioned 2, and then I mentioned 2 and the newer models. Yeah, that's a bit of a confusing question, but Deborah, let me clarify for you. EM1, Mark II, Mark III, and X can all be used with tethering, and the OM1 can be used with tethering as well. The only exception to the 1 series was the EM5 Mark II, which can be used with tethering, but no other 5 series cameras can. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, Roger. Yes, Roger, this is a great question, actually, to help let me help people out with this one. Using the video feature for 30 minutes, and the file came out in separate files, not one continuous video. Yeah, so basically the FAT32 file system that the cameras use, many cameras use them, and some don't, means that the maximum file size is only about 4 gig. So once it gets to 4 gig, it basically starts creating another file seamlessly without a gap. But it should go on and on and on like that. Now, normally we see this if you're shooting in 4K, Cinema 4K, because obviously you're going to generate 4 gigs very quickly. But that's the reason for it. It's the file system that does it. And I deal with this issue pretty much on a daily basis. But because of the way that I stitch and edit and throw my video files through, I use DaVinci Resolve, sometimes Premiere Pro. The way that I input them is that there is a seamless file. You just put it next to the next clip and it plays all together. Hopefully that helps. Let's have a look. Richard said, is it my laptop? OM Capture seems very slow compared to Lightroom. Well, OM Capture is a tethering software. Lightroom is an editing software. However, it could be your laptop because I find it works pretty flawlessly in terms of a tethering software, in terms of speed. So it could be your laptop. It's difficult to say, Richard. And one quick one before we go back to OM Capture. Can OM Capture be used wirelessly or USB only? So it can be used as you see it here, that way. There we go. As you see it like this with the live view and the super control panel and all the buttons and things, that can only be used via USB. But you can use it wirelessly to simply have it transfer images as soon as you take them over to your, it'll send them over your home router system and instantly into a folder. You don't get a live view. You don't get all these fancy shenanigans as well. Okay, speaking of fancy shenanigans, let's get stuck in. Let's have a little look at what actually is in it. So we're going to go from the top, and these are split into different modules here. From the top one, and I'll close them down as we're not using them. We have the file save settings. Now, this actually pops up the first time you open the software. It'll pop up and it'll say, are you saving to PC, SD, or SDN PC? So you get that choice. Today I'm going to save to PC only. I'm not assigning a subfolder, but I have assigned a folder on my desktop that is called OM Capture. Now, what I can do is I can click the back button here, and that will allow me to go backwards within the file tree system. So if there are any ones that I want to choose, or I can go up a folder. And if I press the forwards arrow, I can create a subfolder within OM Capture to then make that my receiving folder as well. So lots of cool additions here. Now, what you can see here is that the PC tree comes down and it's saying not assigned to memory card, and then it's coming down here, but it is assigned to PC, and then it's going to my OM Capture folder. The next option that I have is this edit tool here, where I can change the prefix, base, and suffixes, where I can change these naming rules to whatever I like. So if I want to put in something quite specific here, I can do. So that's your file save settings. It's really, really easy, nice and simple on that settings. And I'm just going to click that little arrow there to just collapse that module down so that it's out of the way. That brings us on to kind of like the most important part of OM Capture and what we've got here, which is the replication of the super control panel. Now, this is fun, actually, and it gets even more fun as we go through, because what we get a lot of the time is people asking on the cameras, can we customize the super control panel? That's that quick menu that pops up when you press OK, and you get a tile system come up, and people want to customize it. And on the cameras, you can't customize that. That is a set layout, and that is what we are given. And beautifully wondrous it is too. However, in OM Capture, we can customize any of these tiles here. We can reduce it all down to ones that we want only. And I'm going to do that just now for you, because what I've done is this is the default super control panel. It shows absolutely everything in there. But there's a ton of stuff at the bottom here that we're not actually going to look at today. And it's mainly related to video, because, yeah, you can do video through OM Capture. Now, what I'm going to do is I am going to click on these 4 lines here. Whenever you see these 4 lines here, it means that there's a direct connection to settings. Okay, so this particular one is going to take us to shooting settings. If I click on it there, and then it brings up this little box which has loads of different subheadings in it, which we'll come to. We'll kind of skate through some of them. But on this one, right at the bottom, we've got a customized super control panel option. So if I click on this, and you can see here, everything that's ticked is everything that's going to be in that module. Now, I'm going to take some stuff out. I'm going to take out the movie AF mode, movie specification, movie IS, the movie picture mode, the movie mode in general. You know what? Just because my OCD doesn't particularly like one object on a bottom line on its own, I'm going to take out HDR as well, because we're not going to use the HDR option today. So now I've customized this. Okay, I can revert it to default settings if I want. I can reset it. I can move things around. So if I hit on image stabilizer, I can move this up through the ranks to exactly where I want it to be. And you can just generate your own custom super control panel. So once it's done, click close. And then you can see here, it's reshuffled itself to only the items that I wanted on there. Nice and simple. And this is one of the best things about OM Capture, is that you can just literally use it however you like. So when you see these 4 lines, it's not always going to take you to the same thing. So this one takes you to shooting settings. and the one above it takes you to transfer settings. So it will be a dedicated straight line to the options on that particular module, which is so easy. Okay. Hopefully we're doing all right and everyone's happy. Let's see if we've got any more questions in here that I can answer. Where did we get to? This is a great question. Rambling Tug has asked, which power bank should I buy? And, you know, this is definitely, a lot of people will have personal preferences for things like Anchor. To be honest with you, the one that I use is a very cheap option in comparison. It's a third of the price of some of the better known ones. And in my mind, it performs exceptionally well. The same, if not better. This is made by a company called Charmast. And I know that there's a few of you out there. I'm not sure I can do it, but I know that there's a few of you out there that have that Charmast model. So if you want to put that into our chat, little links to that, that'd be fantastic. And it's a Charmast or Charmast, depending on where you are in the world, 65 watt PD, power delivery compliant power bank. And if you're in the UK, it should be around £35. Or the equivalent of that regionally around the world. But it's superb for lots of different things. Thank you, Rambling Tob. Koji's 46, what does RecView show? Well, you'll see as we go further down. But RecView is going to show us a sample of the image that we've just taken. Let's see. Brent, Wi-Fi is on all camera models now, with the exception of, I think it was the EM5 Mark 1. In fact, even that may have had it as well. So Wi-Fi is there for the app on all of them, but not all of the models have the ability to update firmware via the app. So, okay. Right, so let's go back into here and see what we're talking about next. So we've got loads of different things here. As you can see, this little M represents that my camera over there is in manual. All right, now if I want to change that, I do need to go over there and turn the dial and shift it off to something else. But it's in manual at the moment. And because I'm in auto ISO here, I have got exposure compensation. Okay, so I have that here for me. Actually, I'm just going to turn something off because we'll come to this in a second. Don't worry. I'm being a bit ahead of myself. So I have got the exposure compensation available because I'm in auto ISO. Now, that isn't going to make much difference at the moment because of the nature of how dark it is over here and what my f-stop is at the moment. Well, I can change that. So I can go in and I can change my shutter speed. We can go slower, which is obviously going to let more lighting. But we can change our aperture. f3.5. We could select an ISO if we wanted to, 102,400, very bright, low 80, very dark, etc. Or auto, which is perfectly usable in manual. So you've got access to your main three sort of exposure triangle bits and pieces there. Let's bring this back up to where I had it. I had it at 250th of a second because I'm going to be using some flash. And I also had it at f11 because I'm using the 90mm macro. Fairly close, very shallow depth of field. The problem here is, as you can see, it's now gone very dark. So what I sneaked into earlier and turned back off was the night LV or night vision. Now, if you're not on an OM1, that'll say live boost. So a lot of the buttons and things that you see are specific to certain cameras. So if I'm showing you a button that you don't see on your OM Capture, it may be because it's not relevant to that model, such as night LV, that might be represented by live boost. So if I turn my night LV back on, that's simply boosting the image. It's doing nothing to the exposure. It's not changing any settings within the camera. It's simply boosting the exposure so I can see exactly what I'm doing, which is super, super handy when you're doing macro at f11 in a dark, dank studio. So moving back through on our control module, we've got our white balance options, our white balance compensation here. You can have a little play around with your white balance compensation if you wanted to mess about, all sorts of shenanigans. You got your picture mode where you can select any of your normal standard picture mode options. You can go to black and white if you want. I'll turn that into monotone. And you can go through any of the art filters as well. Incidentally, while you've got night vision on, you won't see the monotone or the filter system. So if I turn night vision off, and then just bring the speed back down so we can see it. You'll now see that I am actually shooting in black and white. If I was to change that to Art 10 or Art 6 or Art 4 or Art 1, I'm seeing all those changes. Let's put it back to 3 natural. But when we put on the night vision, we don't see the effects of those filters or the monotone. So it's worth remembering that one. Stabilization options, your flash options. At the moment, I'm just going to fill in. That's the only option I need because I've got a flash on here that is in TTL, so that's in auto flash. Flash compensation, which I do use quite regularly just to add or remove a little bit of extra flash depending on what's going on in the scene. And then your focus options. Now, the lens that I have over there is the 90mm macro. This lens has a focus clutch. If that focus clutch is pulled back, it overrides everything, and then I wouldn't be able to change into autofocus from here. So if it's pushed forward, I can change through auto or manual focus through here as I wish. It's really, really, really quite easy. So you have that option for focusing there. You have your drive mode option. So this is whether or not you're going to take a single shot, a burst, a silent shot, a pro capture shot, a timed shot. They're all in there, and you can make changes to these by clicking on the little 4 lines at the side. That's going to open up your settings for your drive modes. Now, this direct line to settings is such a brilliant thing because it doesn't mean that you're searching up on your toolbar at the top for file, edit, image, save settings, anything like that. You're just literally clicking on the 4 lines next to the module that you're using. So in here, we've got the drive mode here. I can change my frames per second anywhere up to the maximum of that particular one. If I want to put a frame count limiter on it, I can put that on, and then I can limit the number of pictures that are in there. I'm not going to have a frame count limiter on today because we're not shooting bursts. But if we look now in the tree that drops down below drive mode, we've got options for sequential and anti-shock, silent sequential. Okay, you can change those settings here. High speed SH1, high speed SH2. Now, interesting. Here we go. So you'll see that because I've got the 90mm macro on, which is not a 50 frames compatible lens with the OM1, it's defaulted to 25 frames per second here. If that had been a 12 to 40 or a 40 to 150, a 300 or 150 to 400, that would have defaulted to 50 unless I changed it. And of course, your high-speed SH1 goes all the way up to 120 frames per second as well. So you can choose all those. You've got your pro capture modes, your pre-shutter frames, any frame count limiters you want to set in all 3 pro cap modes because this is an OM1. So I can set that different for pro cap SH2, pro cap SH1. I have all this control over everything, just like in the menus. And then I have options for high-res shot as well, so I can add that in. What you'll see here is that the handheld icon is grayed out because there's a flash on there, which has actually turned itself off. I'm just going to turn it back on again. It has decided that it's seen the flash, and it's in handheld mode and not in handheld mode. Flash options we can change. We'll go through this section of it now, and I'll come back over and get some more of your questions. So do absolutely put in some questions. Really, really important. This is not all about OM Capture, so you can ask whatever you like on other tech things as well. In your flash section, you can change your X sync. That's your fastest sync in normal flash, your slow limit if you're using second curtain. Whether or not you're combining ambient exposure compensation with flash compensation, I tend to not do that. And the balanced flash metering is an option only specific to the OM1, whereby it will either balance the flash for the whole screen, or as it's off now, it's aiming the flash at a subject. Okay, so but if we switch it on, then that will balance the flash at everything in the composition. Okay, so let me close that down on the wrong screen, trying to tick things on the wrong screen. And let's see if we can take that little banner away and look at this. Here we go. Roger's got the Charmast power bank. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's absolutely beautiful. Really, really good bit of kit. And with a longer lead. Yeah, perfect stuff. Let's see. SJN2K has asked, when I connect my OM1, what setting do I select on my camera's flip screen? You'll select the option, which I think is third one down, which is a camera connecting to the PC / raw control. And that will enable you to use OM Capture. Roger, great question. So when we use OM Capture and we've messed about with all this and we've customized it all, we spent half an hour making it how we want it, and we close it all down, and we take the camera away, are those settings there? Yes, the settings that we supply by OM Capture will remain on the camera, and they will remain in the software when we reopen it again as well. So it all stays. There is no reset mechanism. Right? You just lose it all. So it's fantastic. This is another great question. Kenny wants to know, what's so special about the cable supplied with the camera? Can I not use any other cable? Yeah, you can use any other cable that is dedicated and proven for data transmission. So what's so special about the cable that comes with your camera is that it's a high-speed data transmission cable. And it has two little sort of nodules on it, one on either side, which are ferrite tubules, I think maybe is the correct word. Anyway, they're big blocks of ferrite which are there to stabilize the data transmission in the simplest of terms, and that's what makes it a really rocking cable. Now you can get some excellent third-party data cables. However, we do see every day that people buy them, the specifications are stated as being superb, fantastic, brilliant, and then people get them and say, why won't my computer see my camera? I'm using a third-party cable that said it's for data, and then when we see it, it's teeny tiny thin, and it's probably no better than a mobile phone charging cable. So that's why. There are some pretty hectic reasons why, but the supply cable has got these ferrite blocks on, space age technology, to make sure that your data transmission is clean and fast. But great question. Yeah, Jay, the cables that come with the cameras are pretty exceptional. Okay, let's get back over here. Let's see what we were doing. So we were going through here and we were checking what we had. We've got our stabilization options, our flash options, which when we looked into it, we could click on the little button and go into the flash, just like we did with all the other things as well. We covered our focus and our drive modes. Then we've also got a high-res shot. So if we click on high-res shot, it's going to ask us if we want a high-res tripod, which we're on, or handheld. Now, if I select handheld, you'll see what's happened here is that my flash has automatically said, no, you're doing a handheld high-res shot, you can't use your flash. So it knows that it's there, and it's just saying you're not going to be able to use it. If you use tripod high-res, you can use the flash. And then, you know, if you want, you could fairly laboriously take high-res bracketed shots in a certain way, because as we go further down, we have access to manual focus fine adjustments. Now, what you'll also see that's happened when I click on, I'm just going to turn it off, and I want you to watch what happens every time I change something. If it affects other items on the screen, those tiles will briefly pulse yellow. So as I change this now to tripod-based high-res, you see the options that pulse yellow are the ones that have had to change. And that is the stabilization, which has turned itself off. The drive mode has gone to silent because it has to. It's an electronic shutter feature. And then the image quality has set itself to 80 megapixel fine JPEG plus a RAW. Okay, we can change that if we want, but that's the default that it goes to. And again, look, you've got those 4 little lines that will take you straight to the settings where you can dictate image quality. So if we wanted to now, we could take a high-res shot and it'd be all lovely. In fact, let's do it. Let's take a high-res shot and just see what happens. It's a good excuse. Now we're in manual focus, okay, and I'm not focused on anything. I can see that there are some things in focus, so we're just going to take the shot and see what happens. Now it's flashing away here, but you don't see those individual shots on your live view, specifically in OM Capture. You will see a final view when it comes back. And if I bring this one up here, I'm going to make it slightly bigger for you, and then you'll be able to see that this is the high resolution JPEG that the camera has produced. Now, a little bit difficult to see in the preview window, and I can of course bring another window over and show you exactly that. If I bring that down, this is just a standard resolution preview that we put in here. Now, if I go ahead and look on my other screen, hopefully, here we go. This will bring up the actual high-res view, and this is the RAW now that we are looking at, and we can see incidentally as I recall, each one of these tiny little succulent fingertips is probably approximately 0.5 millimeter. So it's giving us a really, really nice view there. That's our high res with flash. And if I go back and turn it off in my super control panel on there, boom, the little icons that are also affected then pulse in yellow again, which is really, really useful. And then this rec view is going to stay here. That's going to stay there for the duration until I take another shot. It's not going to go away. So it gives me something to look at. So I can kind of judge my next shot on there as well. Right, let's have a quick look at some more questions. Let me see. Let's see. Trevor's got a great question here. Will setting auto ISO upset the exposure when using flash? No, do you know what? I saw this on a forum the other day, and I can't vouch for every single flash unit on the market, but the OM Olympus flash, so FL700, FL900, STF8. When you set the ISO to auto, it detects that there's a flash and then sets you at ISO 200 automatically. So it doesn't put it any higher. So, for example, right now, it's not throwing this ISO. If I try and click on it, let's have a look where we're at. It's on auto, and it's not telling me here. But if I have a little dig around, let me pull up that image just there and have a little dig around at that last image that we did. And I'll be able to find out that it fired at ISO 200. So yeah, so on the Olympus and OM flash systems, ISO auto is going to drag you to 200 because it automatically detects the flash. But I couldn't vouch for other flash systems, although I would imagine it's still the same. If a camera sees the flash, it goes to 200. Fingers crossed. Again, Jim, can we use the tethering app to set up our C1 to C4 settings on OM1? No, you can't. That is one of the limitations. Like I say, it's 99.9% awesome. There are a couple of things that you can't do, and setting up C1 to 4 settings is not possible on here. It needs to be done on the camera, that one. And then you can transfer them via the app or via OM Workspace. But not through the tethering software. It's dedicated to tethering rather than customization externally on camera. But a really good question, Jim. Thanks very much. Let's see. Roberts, can you download OM Capture to more than one computer? Yeah, you can have as many computers as you like. I've got it on about 4 here. It's not limited to one. It's just a download. Every time you go to download, you may get asked for your serial number, but it won't stop you if you've already downloaded it once. So... good question. Roger's saying it's strange how the color has changed from the live view. Yeah, that's a great question. If you look over here, though, what you'll see is that my night vision is on. If I turn that off, then what we're seeing is a color cast from my streaming lights. And the flash overrides those color casts because it's brighter, it's a higher density light, and it's closer. So the colors are more natural, which is why it changes. It's got a lot to do with live view because it's boosted anyway. So there we go, switch it on. It's a boosted view. And that the flash overrides any of this ambient light. So if I was to turn the flash off and I was to turn the night view off, in fact, actually, let's put this back up. We shot 1/10 of a second, so we were quite lucky with that one. Doesn't really matter when it comes to flash duration anyway, so we're quite good with that one. 250 of a second at f11 with night vision off. There you go. It's dark as you like. So there's really not enough ambient light to be collected by that. All that light that you see and all those colors are from the flash. Great question. Thank you very much. Oops, I'm trying to click on the wrong monitors again. Too many mouse cursors. There we go. Let's see. Koji's 46. No, you can't use OM Capture with the TG6, unfortunately. And Stu's question, before I go back to the software, is updating the camera service, the camera firmware. And I mentioned that OM Workspace is usable. I mean, I find it more than usable. There's hundreds of you shouting at your screens right now, going, but I mean, I've used it for 10 years, never had a problem with it. It is better to use the app because it's quicker and it's safer You know, there's no cables to accidentally pull out, or the dog might pull out, because I hear that one a lot. The dog pulled out the cable. It's just a lot safer. The app is the OM Image Share app, which you can get on your phone's app store. Okay. Let's see. Great Plains wants to know how to get the histogram to appear on the computer. Yeah, of course. So what you want to be is up here in menu, and then you've got view, and then you want to just make sure that you've got histogram ticked just here. That's exactly where you'll find that. Okay. Right. So let's go back in it. Where did we finish off? Oh, yeah. So we were talking about things changing when they needed to, and pulsing yellow. So when we go to a tripod-based high-res shot, poof, all the options that need to change will pulse yellow. And when you go back, poof, they'll pulse yellow again, just to tell you that they're changing. So we move down. We've got options for metering here. You can change your metering for ESP. That's evaluating the whole frame. Center weighted, which is quite obvious. It's weighted on the center of the frame. Spot metering is very specifically and by default from the AF point. And then the biased for spot metering to highlight and shadow, or high key and low key style photography. You can choose your face detect, face and eye, etc. And of course, you can change your image quality from raw, large superfine JPEG, or a combination of the two, however you want to do it. For this demonstration, I'm pretty much just sitting on large superfine JPEG, and that'll do me nicely. Now, there's a section in the next module here that's all closed down because I'm not actually in RC mode. RC mode is when you are using an OM or Olympus flash off camera and controlling it optically by the light of a small on-camera flash. So say, for example, you had an FL700 or an FL900 in RC mode way over there. Then on the camera, you might have an FL-LM3, the tiny little bouncy flash set on there, and then you would switch RC mode on here. That would then enable you to control that off-camera flash from this little module there, all the way from things like TTL, flash power, auto, manual, or off, with any compensations that you would want in there. And of course, whether or not you wanted to shoot standard flash, which syncs at a maximum of 250th of a second, or if you wanted to go high-speed super FP flash, which is going to give you up to 8,000ths of a second. Okay, which is really fun, lots of fun. Okay, let me just, this is all just scooched up a little bit, so let me scooch it all back down a little bit. There we go. And of course, you've got groups and channels that you can manage if you've got more than one flash. If you're familiar with flash and grouping them in RC, this will all look very familiar. And that's your RC mode, so I'll just pop that closed. Now, all along the way here, you may have seen that little things have been happening in this box, which is my battery percentage, the fact that I'm connected to my laptop, how many minutes of video that I have if I wanted to do video, what lens I've got on here, and I can click here for more information. That's going to tell me how many shots are left on each memory card. I don't actually have a card in slot 2, so there are no shots and no time left. So that's really handy card slot information. And then the PC icon just here, that kind of flashes when it's sending the imagery, the image to your computer. That will just flash to tell you. And also when it's actively processing something like focus stacking or high-res shot, something like that. The live view option is not to turn the live view on and off. Well, it can be. You can switch it on and off like that. But the options related to it are the quality. So you can have QVGA if you're feeling really tight on the resolution, or you can have the maximum, which is the SXQVA. Then you've got some more options related to interval shooting. So if you wanted to do interval shooting, you can go and change these settings. I'm not going to go into it now because it breaks down all the windows and changes it into something else. And once you've started, it asks you not to stop, but you can set all those interval shootings in terms of how long it waits before taking an image, how long it waits between each image that it takes, and then whether or not it uses something called exposure balancing, exposure smoothing. You get all those options again. And then we have the bracketing options, which is why we're here, why I'm here today anyway, specifically. And I'm going to go into that in just a second. So I'm just going to dip into what I think is a few other questions in the chat screen here. So let me find, this is a good one. Doug, you can also tether OM1 with Lightroom, can't you? Yeah, you can. You can tether most. There are lots of different tethering softwares out there. This one's free and it manages its menus natively. But what you can do is you can have, if you're tethering through here, then you just have your receiving folder to be the Lightroom catalog that you want to be using on Lightroom editing over here. So when you take the image, it instantly goes over to, gets imported into your Lightroom catalog. There are a few clicks, very easy to do. So you can combine the two if you wish. So yeah, Doug, great question. Roy is asking, oh, this is an open-ended question. What specifications are best for the laptop? 8 to 16 gig, i5 or i7 or AMD? You know, it's so difficult to say. It depends on what other things you want to run. So the laptop that I'm running is a 16 gig of RAM on an i7, and it works really, really well. It's a Dell. It's an Inspiron. It works really well, is what I'm saying, at 16 gig of RAM and an i7. Okay, is OM Capture available for iPhone? No, you would want to use the OM Image Share app, which gives you kind of more like a smaller version of this. You don't get as many options, but you do get the ability to use a live view and change your basic exposure settings. So OM Image Share for that one. Let's see. Stu, this is a great question. If you change your metering to spot, how does one select the spot in the Capture app? Right, let's take a look at this one then. So if we go to, so we're going to go to single autofocus because we need an AF point. I'm just going to take your question down there, Stu. And then we're going to come down here. We're going to choose all these things on the bottom. I'm going to look at with you as well. We've got plenty of time. You're not going anywhere. I'm definitely not going anywhere. So we've got loads of time tonight. So down here, we've got the option where it says small. Click the arrow by the size of it, and you can select single. And if I select single, I can drag that around to where I want it to be. Oops, now it's in autofocus, which is going to be quite interesting because I've got the macro lens on. There we go. But what will happen if I then choose spot metering is that it's going to meter from wherever I drag that spot. There we go. So, and it's slightly different because I've got a flash involved, but it will meter from different places as it goes. Now, the reason why it's not getting focus when it goes further back is because I've got the focus limiter switched on the 90mm macro, so it can't actually get to that point. But Stu, this is how you'll do it. You grab a single AF point, and then you can drag it around the screen to wherever you want it to capture the metering from. And I'm going to leave that there because that's the bit we're going to focus on. Beautiful. Looks like an alien landscape. Brilliant. I'm going to leave that there. It's a great question, Stu. Thanks. And it helped me to dip into that bottom section a little bit as well. Now, going back to this, I'm going to just I'm going to take it off back into manual focus because I need to for another part of this demonstration. And I'm just going to click where it says single to get rid of it off the screen so that I don't think I'm in autofocus because it's a visual representation that we don't need. Now, as we go through, I said we've got bracketing. So if I click on bracketing now, it's going to take me to the bracketing options that I have. Normal white balance, auto exposure, flash ISO, art, but then we've got the focus bracketing options, and then of course the focus stacking options, which is superb. Focus bracketing is going to allow you to take up to 999 images. It's not going to do anything to them. You'll need to sort them out in your favorite post-production stacking software. Focus stacking, if we switch this on, is going to let us take up to 15 images, and it's going to take those, it's going to take 15 shots at various focal points throughout the depth of the composition, indicated by our focus differential. That's the spacing between each one. I'm going to leave it at 4 because we're quite tight, quite close up here. The smaller the number, the more shots you're taking because it's probably less depth of field per image. And then the bigger the number, the more depth of field you have per image. Yes. And then there's a charge time. We're using an Olympus flash, so we don't need to set a charge time. But if you were using a third party, you could set that one here. And then when we click close, you'll see here that BKT bracketing is now lit up yellow to tell me my next shot is going to be bracketed. My drive mode has changed to a sequential drive mode in silence because that's what focus stacking needs. And then you'll see here I've got this little yellow box. That's my frame compositional box for stacking. That's telling me that once I finish the final output, the stack that it's going to make me is only going to be what's inside that yellow box. So whatever I want, get it in there, nice and sharpish. Once we've done that, we need to find a focal position, a focal starting point. And now stacking needs a central starting point of 40 to 50% into the image, or the eyes if it's an insect, as a reference point to create this 7% crop of that yellow frame that it's got there. So we get it 40, 50% in, or the eyes if it's an insect. Now, of course, I could go over there and start messing around with the camera, but everything would be shaking all over the place because it's macro. So instead, I've got these little arrows here, which are my manual focus fine adjustment. All right. Now you see AF is not on. It's grayed out. It's not on. But if I use these, this side is going to bring the focus back to me towards macro. Okay. So if I hit it, you get big jumps. It's focusing nearer to me. And the other way, it's going to focus towards infinity as far as it can go. Now, the 3 arrow sections are large incremental adjustments. And then the 2 are medium. And then the 1 are very fine. So I'm going to bring this back on a medium. I'm going to try and get back to where we were. Keep clicking it. And then I'm going to almost there. And then I'm going to fine adjust like that. And I think we're pretty much there. It's nice and easy. It's such a simple way to focus when you're shooting macro. When touching the camera, the lens, the setup, anything is going to create all this movement, and you're going to lose that very narrow depth of field. Right, let's see how many minds we've blown with that one. Let's have a quick look where I was. Barry asked, does it work with an FL36? Yes, it will work with an FL36. And Trevor, you are forgiven for the capitals. Don't worry. I'm not precious about capitals. Okay, Stu is asking, does a tethered camera record both on the memory card and in the destination directory of the laptop or PC? Stu, it's your call, your choice. If you come back into your module here for file save settings and click where it says PC, you can choose memory card, card plus PC, or PC only. Very, very easy. Now then, let's see. Margaret's asking a great question. Just to give you a top up, what was RC mode for? RC mode is for when you want to remotely control an off-camera flash that has RC capabilities by using a small on-camera flash in kind of optical trigger mode. That's what RC mode is for. Let's see. Kenny, do you recommend charge time settings? Excuse me, sorry, I got an itchy nose there. Charge time settings for third-party flash, or does it depend on the device? Depends on the device. Some manufacturers are a real quick recycle, some are not. Depends on the batteries. Some take, some are in-camera charged lithium, brilliant batteries. Some take AA's. It varies from time to time. What I would say is that from what I've heard, I don't use them personally, but from what I've heard, if you're using something like the Godox range, then 0.5 seconds charge time when your batteries are at maximum works pretty well, but it will vary depending. Okay. Let's go back over here. Let's take a shot. We're in focus stacking. So the image that's going to pop up here in the rec view when we're finished is going to be the focus stacked image. All right. I've chosen a position that I feel is probably about 40% into this part of the subject, this initial little part. Now, across the whole thing there, I said each of those little kind of nodule fingers of this little succulent, probably about 0.5 millimeter. So you're looking at probably about 10 millimeters across, 12 millimeters across all the way. So it's something nice and small. Next time I hit this button here, it's going to start taking the stack. You're not going to see anything. You're going to see a blank screen. It's going to flash away over here. But what I will be able to see it on the back screen of the camera. So whilst you're in the studio, you can see those images chopping through, but you won't see them fed instantly through OM Capture until it's finished when you see the final one only. Here we go. So now my flash is going to be a little bit slow here. I've just realized it's actually going very slow because it's pumping out the full burst of flash. And there is a very good reason for that, because I've actually tricked myself into forgetting a very vital component of this whole setup. And that is that when you use focus stacking, you cannot use TTL flash. All right. You can't use auto flash with focus stacking on an FL700. So what's happened is that the flash has put itself into manual mode and it's pumping out full power for each shot. It's finished now. It's probably drained its battery. We've got a massively overexposed image. So what I actually need to do is I'm going to do a bit of scooting now. I've got to go and set the manual power on this flash. I'm going to turn bracketing off, all right, temporarily, because, and I should have known this, I've done it enough times. When you go to do focus stacking, the flash is going to go into manual power. You should take a test shot. Okay, so we're at F11, 250 of a second. I'm going to take a guess at this. You know what's happened? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're in RC mode. So that's what's happened there. I'll be back. So let's take a test shot and see what happens. There we go. Much better. Right. So we were in RC mode and the flash thought I should have told it what to do, and I didn't. So there we go. So now manual 1/13th power. What an interesting number. So let's go back on and turn the bracketing on. This should be much, much quicker now because we're not waiting for that full power recycle every time. Schoolboy error, David. Schoolboy error. There we go. We're on. We've got our little yellow frame. And you can see it all flashing away behind me very quick. And then that's it. It's finished. Okay. That's how it should have been. So we'll edit that out of the final video. Okay. It's not like we're live or anything. So then the rec view is going to bring up what it shows us. I'm not going to show you the rec view. I'm going to find that high-res file over here. And we're going to have a look at that. Sorry, not high-res file. This is our focus stacked file. So this is our stacked image. And there we go. Lovely, lovely depth of field from the front of that tiny little succulent node all the way to the back. Look how glorious that is. Absolutely fantastic. And the benefit of not touching anything, there's no movement. We're getting a perfect stack. So here, what I want to show you is, you know you've got a perfect stack when you look around the edges and you're absolutely fine with everything being clean and sharp around there. Superb. So despite my little schoolboy error, which I apologize for, I know you're all disappointed, you should expect more, then that's how the bracketing works on here. Was I out of focus? I think our flash was too bright. I think I got there in the end. But I appreciate you got my back. You do need to let me know because, as you can see, I do clearly make errors quite a lot. Okay. So anyway, let's just go back here. We're going to turn the bracketing off now because we've used that. So we'll go in and we'll turn focus stacking off. If we did a focus bracketing, we would start the focus point at the nearest point to us we want to do focus, and the camera would work away from us automatically. Okay, firing the flash as if you'd set it as well. All right. So you've got your manual focus adjustments. These are brilliant. These are just fantastic to use. And then, of course, you've got things like your auto exposure lock, a halfway shutter press if you're in autofocus, and then exposure button just there. To quickly go over a few last things at the bottom here, and this is by no means a fully inclusive tour of the software. It's about 70-75% of it. Okay, there's quite a lot more, but hey, remember we've got OMDS events. All right, so Google OMDS events or go to OMDS events if you have it in your bookmarks, and if you don't have it in your bookmarks, why not? Let's get a star on that one, and let's be checking those OMDS events, because myself and the rest of the technical team do loads of virtual workshops, and the full tour around OM Capture is in there, which will add that extra 30% on, and it's a nice small kind of 200 people in a Zoom session. It's not small at all, but we do everything in there, so it's a lot easier because it's not alive. Okay, so down at the bottom, let's have a little look. A few options that we've got. We've looked at a couple of them. We looked at night vision, which could be live view boost on some cameras. You turn it off, it's going to be dark because of the ambient light in here. Turning it on just helps me to compose, and the exposure isn't affected because I'm using flash. I've got down here my little depth of field preview icon. So if I click and hold that, you'll see there that the image change and the lens's aperture has been stopped down to the actual rating that I'm using, which is f11. If I let go, I'm seeing through the lens as though it was wide open at f3.5. We've got a magnify option here as well. So if we click the arrow next to magnify, we can initially choose the level of magnification. So we can go to 3 times here. And then if I click on the magnify icon, it will jump in and magnify for me. Now I can, of course, click and drag and hold it. And I'm dragging it around by clicking and holding it to see what else is going on. And if I think that for some reason it's not enough magnification, I can go ahead and click the arrow and then go all the way into 14 times, which is ridiculous. And obviously you can see this is a very heavily boosted image, as you can see there, by all those tiny little bacterial noise effects. So let's take that back down to 3 times and let's turn it off. You have an auto rotate option as well, which means that if you're going into portrait or landscape, it's going to automatically rotate the view. So if you are shooting portraits and your clients are watching, when you go like that to take a portrait shot, your clients are not doing this to see what's going on, which is useful, and clients will thank you for it. We have a level gauge display. We click on that one so you can see how level your camera is not. Mine is way off, but it is pointed downwards. We have a white balance dropper, so we can pick white balance from a specific image. And then, of course, we have our focus target modes. So in here, we can choose exactly the same as in the camera, all single, small, cross, middle, large, or move it around ourselves kind of option. And we can turn it on and off as we wish. You can change the aspect ratio. That obviously only affects any JPEGs that you're shooting. So you want to shoot 1:1. You can shoot 3:2. Or the default 4:3. Again, raw file is going to give you the whole composition anyway, but your JPEGs will be affected by that one. We've got highlight and shadow clipping warning, so we can switch these bad boys on as well. If I switch those on and turn off my night vision, then we'll see. There you go. You got that sort of white fuzziness there is telling me that's my shadow clipping. Nothing going on in those areas. But interestingly, although it's dark, there's still a lot of data there. So that's by clipping this one here. That's your shadows. And then your highlights will be on the other side, but obviously we don't have enough highlights to show that. Let's switch that back on. We've got the options for grids. So we can build a grid. At the moment, we've just got this basic grid. It's not the rule of thirds. It's way off. But we can add grid lines and move them around, or we can bin them off and get rid of them as we wish. Customization. We've got keystone compensation. So if you want to stretch any converging lines, if you were doing any buildings or product photography, if you were shooting a product and you were a bit wide and the product was skewed, then what you could definitely do is come in here and you can manipulate the scene here as you wish to do it. And re-skew it, so to speak. It depends. I mean, there's all sorts of uses for this kind of thing. Oops, way off. Let's get that back down there. Okay, we can turn that off as well. And then we have an overlay option. Now, the overlay option is not a multiple exposure option per se. This is another one of those limitations. The overlay option allows us to choose a file to overlay on our view, only on our view, and it's not going to combine the two. Okay, so and it's something that I've never ever used in there. Let's have a quick look. Roger, yes, I presume the STF8 is okay. Yeah, STF8 works brilliantly with this. Absolutely fantastic. And Roberts, could I re-explain the limits of wireless capture? Yeah, the limits of hooking up to OM Capture via Wi-Fi is simply that you don't see any of this live view. You don't have a control panel. You literally have a connected box. And as you take a shot, that shot is just instantly sent to your directory on your computer. You don't see anything. It's just a pick up and go. It's a collection service is basically what it is. So good. Okay, well, we've kind of come to the end of the session. Let me swing some things around because I have got way more feeds on than I normally do today. Thanks for sticking with it. The sessions like these with software can be a little bit heavy and intense, but hopefully it's been useful. Like I said, if you didn't get your question answered in the chat, it's not because I'm trying to avoid questions. It's just that I kind of have to grab them where I see them. You are more than welcome to, once this live ends, go back into the comment section of the video that will stay put on YouTube forever. Put those questions back in, and I'll do my best to hop in over the next couple of days and answer those. Ultimately, what I would say is that if you haven't tried OM Capture, then give it a go. It really is fantastic. And if you don't ever use it to any great extent, it might one day come in useful for something. So having a bit of familiarity about it is really good. Keep an eye out for all the events that we are doing. OMDS events, if you want to just Google that. I haven't got a link because it's just me. But OMDS events where there's loads of things going on in regional languages all over the world for different subjects. That's really good. And keep an eye on our social feeds and, of course, whatever else we're doing globally. The Ask Me Anything sessions are coming back through as well, keeping us all busy. But for now, thank you so much for engaging. Thanks for being there with our products. And hopefully I'll see you on another YouTube live, whether it's Tech Thursday or an AMA or something else sometime in the future. Thanks very much, and bye for now.